In business, we're trying to achieve specific outcomes to serve our customers. That's what we're doing. We're working on projects that deliver value to our customers. And those projects can be broken down all the way to individual tasks. And it's at that task level that we sometimes delegate. And the easiest delegation is when you as a leader delegate to someone on your team, whether that is someone that you lead on the org chart or someone who you're leading as part of a project team. But when you have direct authority over someone, you can delegate kind of downward to them. And that's pretty straightforward. And there's good reasons for doing that. You want to, as a leader, be doing things that are appropriate for you and your skill set. And if it's not appropriate for you to do, if it's something someone else could do, we like to say, only do what only you can do. So if someone else can do it, only you aren't the only person, well then delegate. That frees you up to do those only you can do things, and it provides a development opportunity for someone on your team. So lots of good reasons to delegate. And that's a fairly straightforward delegation. You're asking someone that reports to you to do something. Now, the next level of delegation is just a little bit trickier, but also very common, and that's the delegation upward, when you're asking your leader to do something. But again, when the task is appropriate for someone else to do, well, then the organization benefits by having the right person at the right level do the work. And so if it's appropriate for that person above you to do it, whether that frees you up to do those things that you're supposed to do, or because it requires that person's skill set, whatever the situation is, it's very appropriate to delegate upward. The trickiest way of delegating, and where I see the most challenge, is when we try to delegate sideways. That is, there's no direct reporting relationship. You don't report to that person doesn't report to you. You're kind of peers. And yet it's more appropriate for that person to do a certain task than for you to do that task. And so you delegate. But that can get tricky when there's no reporting relationship. Now, just to back up a step, let's remember that without agreement, there can be no accountability. So whatever the delegation situation, whether you're delegating downward, upward, or sideways, you need to get agreement. You need to get a very specific due date from the other person as to when they'll have that done. And that frees both of you up. It frees you up from having to check on them. Got it done, got it done, got it done, got it done. And it frees the other person from having to be bothered by the person going, got it done, got it done, got it done, got it done. We're all grown-ups here. That's the idea anyway. So when I ask you to do something and you tell me you'll have it Tuesday, I don't need to talk to you again until Tuesday when you'll deliver it to me. And we've talked before that the only two acceptable options are get it done as you committed or communicate ahead of time. So assuming that's clear and you're delegating downward, getting agreement, and they're either getting it done on time or communicating ahead of time, or you're delegating upward, same thing. When you delegate sideways, it is extra critical that you get agreement so that you can have accountability. So when you delegate sideways, make sure you're asking when that person can have it or making clear when you need it. Because if you just say, hey, can you do this for me? And they go, sure, I can do that for you. And then they don't, and you needed it by a certain day, but you don't get it. Well, then there's going to be trouble because you're going to go to them and say, hey, I needed that thing on Wednesday. Where is it? And they're like, well, I didn't know you needed it Wednesday. I'm still working on it. I got lots of other things to do. And if they never said they'd have it on Wednesday, well, you're kind of out of luck. So make sure you're always getting that agreement to hold them accountable. Now, let's say they're not getting it done and they've missed the deadline and they didn't communicate ahead of time and it's a problem for you. What are some things you can do? Well, in that situation, there's two other people at least that you could get involved. There's their leader and your leader. But before you go to that step, make sure you're communicating directly with that person, finding out where they're at. If they made a commitment and they're missing it, and maybe they're calling you ahead of time, hopefully they're calling you ahead of time, find out when they can renegotiate that date. Maybe you're flexible on it and that's okay. Maybe you're not flexible on it and you got to brainstorm some ideas to get it done on time. maybe you didn't get agreement and you need to now get agreement. Whatever it is, find out what needs to happen. Maybe they just are overwhelmed and thought they could get to it but can't, and you should take it back because you can do it if that's possible. All good options, and you want to start there because that's kind of the path that's the least intrusive to the organization. If you can just deal with it at that peer level, that works best. But let's say that doesn't work for whatever reason, or maybe you've tried that in the past and this is the 5th or 6th time and that direct communication just isn't getting you anywhere. Well, you owe it to the organization. Remember, we're trying to get things done to serve customers. So you owe it to the organization to bump it up. Now, that could be you communicating with their leader if you have a relationship with that leader, or it could be you communicating with your leader. And I would suggest you start with your leader. Just let them know, because probably your leader is asking you where some stuff is. And if you were depending on them to get it to you, the other person, and you didn't get it, well, your leader's probably at some point going to go, hey, where's that thing? Weren't we going to get that done? You're like, yeah, I delegated it. I don't know where it is. They're not getting it done. It's not really a good answer. So when you're getting stuck or you're hitting a wall with the person you've delegated it to, your peer, it's not happening, talk to your leader. Say, hey, here's the situation. What should we do? And likely they're going to go to that person's leader and have a conversation at the leader level to find out what's going on. Or maybe if you have that relationship with that other person's leader, you can just talk directly with them and say, hey, why don't the 3 of us get together? Maybe it's your leader. There's a lot of combinations here. It could be your leader with their leader. It could be your leader with their leader and that person. It could be all 4 of you. It could be you and your leader with that person. Whatever kind of works in the situation, but you owe it to your organization to bump it up if it's happening repeatedly and you're stuck. Now, all this could go away if you would just do the work, right? So you delegate, they can't get it done, you just do it. Or rather than delegate, you're like, it's always a headache to delegate, I'll just do it myself. And that might not be a bad answer. Here's a way of deciding whether or not it's appropriate for you to just go ahead and do the work. Is it a one-off instance? Is this a one-off task, or is this a repetitive task? Because if it's a task that's going to occur over and over, well, you need to be able to delegate it. And if that delegation system isn't working and that person's not reliably getting it done, well, it's not appropriate for you to just take it back. Because remember, there's things that only you can do, and that's what's your highest value to the organization. So the organization is expecting you to do what only you can do. And if you should delegate, well, then you should delegate. And when you pull that back, well, you can say, well, I'll still get everything done. Well, there's still some opportunity costs there. If you had more capacity, well, then you could do more of what only you could do if you have the capacity to pull that back in. So it's going to be pretty hard to argue that you have capacity for it when it's appropriate to delegate. So make sure that if it's a recurring task, that you're bringing it to the attention of your leader and possibly the other leader and all those kinds of things. But if it's a one-off task and you know that it's going to be a headache to delegate, or you know that the person you would delegate that to is very busy, or whatever the situation is, and you would rather just get it done, that can be okay. It's okay to just get something done. But if it's not a one-off task, you really owe it to the organization to delegate or to bring it to the attention of your leader, because that's a systemic problem. That's a business problem that needs to get solved. And when you just keep doing the thing that you should be delegating, you do it over and over, well, then you make it invisible to the organization. And your leader and their leader and the business can't solve that problem if they don't know about it. And when you just keep doing the thing that you should be delegating because that's faster and easier for you, well, you're really hurting the business because the business needs to solve that problem. And you're not giving them that chance because it's not visible. And so you really owe it to the business to properly delegate if it's going to be a continuing task. If it's not a continuing task, well, then go ahead and just do it yourself that one time. But as soon as it comes up again, you got to start asking yourself, hey, is this going to come up again and again? And I really do need to delegate or talk to my leader about it? Or it's just a fluke and it's only 2 times and it'll never happen again. On that 3rd time, it's probably a recurring thing and you need to take it seriously. But if it's truly just one-off, go ahead and do it. I get it. Sometimes it's just easier to do something yourself than to try to delegate it and manage this whole delegation process. But understand that it hurts the organization if it's an ongoing thing and you don't. So delegation can be tricky. It can be tricky even to delegate downward if you don't get good accountability from and get agreement from people on your team. It can be very tricky to delegate upward. That can be scary for people to try to get their boss to do something and pass it up. We're like, hey, here's something for you, but totally appropriate. And totally appropriate is the sideways delegation, but clearly the trickiest. But there's some ways to manage it. So keep those in mind the next time something comes to you that you know it's best for you to delegate to someone else.